Okay, hi everyone, welcome. My name is Erin Millen. I'm an Associate Dean of Admission here at Colgate. We're really excited that you're joining us this evening for this week's webinar called All in a Day. You're going to hear from two of our current students, and they're going to take you through a typical day at Colgate, talking a little bit about what the day brings, where they might be, the people they connect with throughout the day. So I'm really excited about this webinar. Again, we're really glad that you can join us. I'm going to give Lauren and Tante a chance to introduce themselves, talk a little bit about what they're studying here, what they do on campus. So Tante, do you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah, sure. My name is Tante Carew. I'm a rising sophomore at Colgate. On campus, I'm involved with our Black Student Union, our First Generation Students Program, our grappling club, and also I'm going to be a community leader next year in the residence hall, which is kind of like Colgate's version of an RA. And I am planning on majoring in psychology and maybe doing a second major in the English department.
Terrific, great, thank you. Lauren, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Lauren Garvey. I'm a rising junior from Bethel, Connecticut. At Colgate, I'm a history major with I'm doubling minoring in religion and African studies. And on campus, I'm involved with the club Ultimate Frisbee team, the beekeeping club, and a sorority.
Okay, great. Thank you both again. Really glad that you can join us this evening. What we're going to do is the three of us are going to do a bit of talking to start, again, to walk you through a typical day at Colgate, and then we'll transition and answer some of the questions that you might have brought with you this evening. As is the case with technology, if there are any technical difficulties, we're hoping to have a recording of this webinar posted on our website soon. And again, we get a lot of questions that come in, and we might not get to all of them, but we hope, the three of us hope that you'll stay connected with us and you can access our contact information right through the admission webpage. So again, just a few announcements there to start. But let's go ahead and get started. I want to jump in. And so, you know, a typical day during the academic year, what does that look like? How do each of you start your day?
I'll kind of take point. So my first class last semester, I'm gonna use my Friday schedule. My Monday and Wednesday schedule was kind of weird. Was at 9:20. I am far too lazy to like wake up like super early and actually get breakfast. So I probably wake up around like 8:45, like get ready for class, grab a Pop-Tart and like get to my class. Usually like within like a couple minutes. I'm not gonna be there super early normally. So I had legacies first last semester, so that was kind of like a class all about reading ancient texts. So I was waking up early in the morning and like reading stuff like the Odyssey, the Bible, Utopia. So it could be kind of draining some mornings, but you know, you wake up prepared to get used to it.
For me, I also am not the type of person to try and wake up very early to kind of get a start on my morning. So luckily for me, most of my classes didn't start till like about 10:20. So I would get up and give myself kind of the bare minimum amount of time to get to Frank Dining Hall, which is one of our main dining halls on campus, just so I could grab usually a banana and a coffee. Luckily for me, this past year, I was actually in the dorm that's located directly next to Frank, which is called Stillman Hall. So it was allowed me to just go very quickly, grab a coffee, grab a banana, and make my way to class at 10:20. And for me, my first class was Religion 101. As I mentioned, I'm a religion minor. So that class covered a lot of kind of, common religions, such as the Abrahamic religions, as well as Hinduism, Buddhism, and a few other kind of more niche religions. So it was a really, really interesting course.
And for each of those classes, I imagine that the classroom experience was different because they're different classes, but what is the classroom experience like? What was it like for each of those classes you had in the morning? How would you describe it?
For me, that particular class was very much discussion based. So we would typically read a text, and then our professor would probably talk about it for, say 10, 15 minutes. And then he'd say, so now what would you all like to talk about? And we would kind of pick apart the text and find different things and discuss it. And that was actually with one of my favorite professors. So it was one of my favorite classes. We were just constantly like very engaged in discussion for the majority of the class. He was really good too about, never pressured anyone to talk. So if you were feeling like you were maybe more of a quieter day for you, he would never pressure you to talk. But but when you felt like contributing, he always really appreciated that too. So
Great.
Yeah, for me, my legacies class was around like 17 people. Most legacies classes are like, I think it's limited to like 16, 17, which is like an average class size at Colgate. And it was also kind of in the same vein of discussion class. The cool thing about legacies is uh, it's a class taught by faculty all across the spectrum. So you can take like a theater professor and you'll probably be acting out the text instead of reading them. I took it with an English professor, so it was very like reading intense. That we read a ton of stuff, and basically the class discussion was kind of led by our own questions. So at the end of every class, we would write down like something interesting that was brought up in discussion that day or a question that we had about the text. And we spent the next class basically going through those questions, bring up important points, kind of just chatting about kind of important things that come up, like when trying to relate the text like modern thought and how they have affected like us today. That was kind of how the class discussion went.
Great. So each of you had those morning classes, and then after that particular class, where would you head next?
for me, I also had a class then at 11:20. So I had about 10 minutes in between my classes. So it was lucky because they were the two buildings right across from each other on the quad. So I would make my way from that building to the next building where I had my history workshop class. And that class is a requirement for all history majors. It's basically it's kind of a theory and methods class, which for me was very intimidating because that sort of thing just does not really appeal to me. But luckily the professor made it really interesting. He kind of added a theme to our class, which was basically political controversies during World War II, because that was sort of his specialty. And so we did learn a lot about how to research, how to write good papers, while also, learning about those sort of topics. And that class, it would be different. So one day of the week, it would be more lecture style. And then the other day of the week or the other 2 days, it would be more discussion based or more contribution based.
For me, I had a class so I finished my 9:20 at 10:10, and then I had another class at 11:20, so I have an hour break basically in between those two classes. I usually would meet some friends at the Coop for like an actual breakfast after just having a Pop-Tart for like my snack in the morning. So usually what I would do is the Coop, usually it's like similar, like I have like a breakfast meal, it's usually similar most days. It either like pancakes, like breakfast sandwich or something else. And they also have their like more like ready-made like stuff you can just grab. So they have like sandwiches, sushi. You can have ready like made to order sandwiches, or I don't know if they do pizza in the morning. So I think they do. But I'd usually grab like a breakfast sandwich or something, sit down and like just hang out with some friends who I met there usually every day. Sometimes if I was behind on homework, I would use that as time to get homework done for my next class. And then once I was done eating and hanging out and time to come up for class, I would enter my next class, which was Major British Writers, which is actually with the same professor that my legacy class was with. So I had her twice every morning, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And that class was very similar, I guess, in kind of structure. It was a bit more driven, less by like a worksheet of filling out questions and talking about them. It was more driven just by, we'd walk into class. We'd usually do more reading in class than we did with our legacies class. And we talk about poetry, starting all the way back with like Beowulf, like one of the first great English texts, moving all the way forward to like Seamus Heaney, more modern, and like Auden, like more modern poetry. So it was very like extremely reading heavy, but like it was really fun. The professor like made sure make sure it was very kind of discussion based, and we like would read old English text like using the actual old text. So like we were trying to decipher these words that made no sense to us. So it was kind of fun at points, and I enjoyed it. It's probably one of the reasons that I'm continuing to like pursue English from now on, is because of how much like passion I really spotted in that department with that professor and a lot of other people around me.
Tante, you mentioned the Coop. That's where you head in between classes, right? Yeah. What are some other things that bring students to the Coop? And the Coop, for everyone, is the O'Connor Campus Center. It's a pretty important hub on campus. So what are some other things that might bring a student to the Coop, and what's that space like?
Yeah, it's a really good study space, even if you're not like going there to eat. They have like a kind of lounge area that has these kind of really nice, like big comfy chairs in the fireplace. It's also a space for like some event hosting. There's a kind of like a room on the side that has like larger dining tables, and like sometimes there'll be like events there. Like I know there's like trivia nights hosted there, like bingo nights. Yeah, that's what trivia is at the pub. Bingo nights hosted there. It's also, I know where our poker club meets, stuff like that. Also, it's where our student travel center is. So if you're looking to buy tickets to like bus tickets to the city, stuff like that, you can get stuff organized through there. It's where our radio station is. If you've joined the radio station, you can have your own show. I have two friends who have radio shows, and I've been on the shows as guests. It's a really fun time. We have a printing lab there, like a computer lab. So if you need to go there and print stuff, that's usually where I print stuff before class if I'm meeting there. And then that's also where our mail room is. So if you ever need to pick up mail on campus, that's the place to be. So there's a lot of kind of reasons you would end up there.
So Lauren, you had mentioned you added a couple classes to start, and then what are the next parts of your day? Where are you headed?
So for me, what was always kind of nice about the professor of my history class is that he would always let us out like a couple minutes early to beat the lunch rush, because he would eat also either at Frank Dining Hall or the Coop. So he wanted to beat all the students getting out of class. So it was really, really lucky for us. So I actually had a couple good friends in that class with me, just because you really start to get to know people within your major. So I basically knew everyone in that class. So a lot of us would end up going actually to the Coop, kind of like Tante. So we would all go after class, and we would, grab lunch there. Some of my favorites from the Coop are also the sushi, as Tante mentioned, and then sometimes they do, so every Tuesday, it's Tex-Mex Tuesday, and they do burrito bowls, so rice and beans and, chicken or beef or whatever you want in it, and those are so yummy. They're my absolute favorite. So usually we'll go there and we'll spend some time and just hang out with friends there. And then if I'm feeling productive, I try to stay for like another hour at the Coop and just do work there. My favorite is there's a really nice fireplace room for people to just sit and do work, and it's really quiet there. So I really like to go there and do work after lunch.
Question that we often get is how much work that you have outside of your classes, and so how much work do you have, and then where do you study? Where are some of the places when it comes time to study that you go to be productive? What would you say in terms of just the amount of work and what some of those places are?
So for me, I was definitely, worried coming into college about what the workload was going to be, but I've found that it's been very, very manageable. I've never had to sacrifice either spending time with my friends or extracurricular activities to get my work done. It's been very much, I've been able to do it all. And I feel like that's been echoed with my friends. A lot of my friends feel the same way. Typically, I'll spend at least 2 to 3 hours a day doing work. But I think it varies, because if I get a lot of work done at the beginning of the week, then some days I don't do any work. Or if I have a big essay or a big test, then maybe I'll put in a little extra time doing that. But I think something that's kind of important to note is that it's a lot different, I think, from high school, where you're in school all day. So you don't have as much time to do both the extracurriculars and study. Whereas at Colgate, you'll probably only be in class, only like a couple hours a day. So you'll have all this extra time now to kind of study more for maybe this, tougher work.
Yeah, I definitely echo. It's usually I'd say 2-ish hours of homework a night. If you're having an extra hard night, it'd be 3 going into 4, but usually that's kind of uncommon. And for me, study spaces I was never a library person. There are people who love the library and swear by its effectiveness. Whenever I'm in a quiet space like that, I slowly start going crazy. So I usually would study in my dorm. There's these little lounge areas in the basements that have couches and a TV. So usually after my classes for the day, I would go back to my dorm, or after grabbing lunch or something. I usually grab lunch at Coop again. Usually I had breakfast and lunch there. I go to the basement area and just kind of chill and kind of socialize and do homework at the same time. So I wasn't if I had 2 hours of homework, let's say, I'm probably not getting it done in 3 hours or 2 hours, probably looking more 3 or 4, but at the same time, hanging out with friends, chatting, watching TV. So I'm kind of getting it done slower, but I'm having that socialization as well at the same time. So usually I've never been a huge library person. If I need to super grind and get stuff done, then maybe on a blue moon I go to the library. But other than that, it's not the place for me personally.
For me, I'm kind of the opposite. If I have friends around and I'm tempted with that, I will not get any work done. So I'm very impressed that you're able to do that, just because I just would not get any work done. So I am a type of person who likes to go to the library and be in that like really quiet space. I have like my favorite spot now that I figured out I like the third floor. Everyone kind of figures out, you know, what spots they like. I like the third floor, a quiet cubicle, and that's where I tend to go to get my work done.
Each of you have talked a little bit about the times of the day when you connect with friends, whether that be through studying, whether it be through meals. Also, you know, a friendship and community is definitely formed given we're a residential campus, so it definitely takes place in terms of the residential halls as well. But another way that students certainly connect and find students who share a common interest are through clubs and organizations, arts and athletics. Could you talk a little bit about the extracurricular involvement that each of you are involved in, and sort of when those meetings and connections take place during the day?
Yeah. So some of my organizations, I like go to Trivia Bowl every once in a while, which is kind of like our quiz bowl. It's like a collegiate like trivia like competitive thing. That was on like Wednesdays, I believe 5 to 6 or like 5 to 6:30. And so I'd go on like every other week, every 2 weeks, something like that. And then the club that I was like super invested in was Grapplers Club. We have practice in like our off season 2 days a week, Monday and Wednesday 6 to 8, and then during competition season it's also on Fridays 6 to 8. And that club like is something I never could myself doing. I've never been like a sports person. I've never done like any like combat sports. I've never been like a super aggressive like I want to fight people person. But it became like a really kind of close knit family for me, and like it's just super fun hanging out with those people. And like competition is super fun. So that kind of became like a big part of my experience, kind of like my support system, and kind of having those people who are like there to fight for me and stuff like that. So that was really great for me in terms of like extracurricular and club and stuff. And that's kind of what it was like 2 hours ish on like a weeknight.
So for me, one of my favorite extracurriculars is Club Ultimate Frisbee, and that I also it's usually about 2 hours, usually like 3 or 4 nights a week, just depending on when we want to meet. And I usually it's 4 to 6, and it's really fun. There's a really beautiful field actually right in front of the admissions building. That's where we practice, and so it's really nice to head down there and meet up with friends. We've become a really close group, and it's been nice because I loved being a part of sports teams in high school, but I am no varsity athlete by any means. So I didn't know if I would be able to kind of get that team feel again. And I've been able to, which has been so nice. And I know a lot of my friends who are on other club sports feel the same way. So that's a really nice thing. And I actually spend so much time with the people on Club Ultimate Frisbee now outside of that too. So I'll sometimes grab dinner with them after practice, or just like little things like going to the grocery store, or just kind of, you know, doing fun little excursions with them has been awesome. And then another extracurricular that's really important to me is called Yes Means Yes. And that's a program that we have at Colgate. It basically, it's a program run by students, and it's for other students. And it's the concept is it fosters positive sexuality, and it's all about also sexual assault prevention and things like that. And I found a really good community within that. And it brings people really close together, where we come and we discuss kind of some of those topics surrounding, you know, sexual assault prevention, positive sexuality, identity, things like that. And everyone gets really close. And that is usually 2 hours once a week for me.
We've talked about the parts of your day that are really sort of grounded on campus, but I think that students who come to Colgate, they find campus is home, but also the local community as well, Hamilton, New York. So when each of you go into the village or into town, what do you do there? What is there to do, and how are those different places in town maybe part of your day?
For me, one of my favorite things to do in town is go to the farmers market, and they have those in the fall and the spring every Saturday morning. And what's really nice is that Colgate's campus, so I guess up the hill, the quad, where first years and sophomores all reside, it's only about a 7-minute walk to downtown. So it's really, really easy. And also, if you don't feel like making the walk, we have a cruiser system that goes to various locations across campus. So one of the locations is downtown at the bookstore. So it's really easy to get downtown, either by walking if it's a nice day, or if the weather's not as nice, just taking the cruiser. And the farmers market is really awesome. They have so many, the food is great. They have fantastic things like muffins, honey. They have maple cotton candy. So my friends and I just love walking around that. So we tend to be there almost every Saturday morning. So that's one of my favorite things to do downtown, as well as just some of the other restaurants downtown are super yummy. So I really enjoy that, every once in a while.
Yeah, for me in downtown, I'm usually going like occasional excursions for like dinner and stuff if I do kind of get a bit tired of like campus food. I think one thing I really love about downtown is I've always been like a huge movie person, and our Colgate Film Society will actually, whenever like a big release is coming up, they buy out the Hamilton Theater and like buy pizza for everyone that goes there, so you can get in for free, have free food like on a midnight release. Those are always super fun because a cool thing is like you usually know the other people who are in your theater with you because like of how like small campus is and how small the theater is. So like it's really kind of like a group experience too, which is kind of weird to say, but like that's part of it. And yeah, that's kind of usually my excursion in town. Also, like there's a lot of stuff in town that, like if you ever need anything, like that's like there's like a drugstore, a grocery store. I have made the like 30-minute trip, like walking trip to the grocery store. It is possible to walk all the way there. It's on the edge of town, but you can make it. Walking back with the grocery might be a bit harder. I took a cruiser back. I was not about to do that, but yeah, everything's kind of within walking distance if you do need to try and like get somewhere in like a hurry, or it's like late at night and there isn't a cruiser.
I think one of the things that draws faculty to come to Colgate, it's similar for faculty as it is for students. They want to get to know their students. They want to teach those smaller classes. They want to be part of the community. So most of our faculty and staff live in the local area. Many live right in the village of Hamilton. Tante and Lauren, when I heard you describe your days, it's clear that you know the faculty, you know your teachers well. Could you talk a little bit more about interactions that you've had with faculty? And sometimes a typical day might involve stopping by their office for office hours. So, what are office hours? When do you go? And just what are the connections that you have with faculty like?
I'm trying. I'm not a huge office hours person. I'm actively trying to be more because like I need to like talk to professors more because like it's like a good thing. But I'm also the kind of person like I just don't find myself going that often. But like one time, one of the most like distinct like examples for me that pops out is I went to just to like check a midterm with one of my with my oceanography professor last semester, and then it turned from like me just checking a midterm into like me talking with her about just kind of like the news or like our personal lives for like 30-ish minutes. Like we were just kind of hanging out and chatting. Another student came in, checked her midterm, and then also joined the conversation. So we're all just kind of just having like a nice chat in her office. So like it's kind of like I feel like a lot of times it kind of turns into that. Even like just having a quick question after class. And a lot of times in psych, I was in psych with a friend, and he liked to ask questions a lot after class, and we usually grab lunch together. So I would just wait for him and go with the professor and ask the question like as well. Like I'm just stand by and kind of get to just have like we all knew each other by name and kind of just had chats after we were done asking questions, asking like how things are going, talking about like professors' research, stuff like that. So like you do kind of form these personal relationships pretty easily with professors because of how available they are and because of how like tight knit and small campuses.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, my relationships with professors, I definitely have formed some really strong relationships through office hours. And some notable ones for me is that in my first semester of my first year, I had a professor for Legacies of the Ancient World, which Tante was talking about a little bit about before. That's the one where you kind of read ancient texts like the Odyssey and the Bible and things like that. And this professor, he had encouraged everyone. He said, please come to office hours. I really want to, talk to you, get to know you. And so I remember going to office hours, and he didn't just want to hear about academics. He wanted to know how I was doing, if I was making friends, if I was comfortable in my dorm, just how I was adjusting to college life. And that really resonated with me. And I actually ended up taking him again this past semester. And I have a really strong relationship with him now. And he doesn't teach any courses in my major or my minors, but he's someone who's now an advisor to me both academically and just in my life. He's always kind of encouraged me to come to him if I want to talk about career or my future or what I'm passionate about. And so that's been really important to me, those sort of relationships. And there's been multiple professors that I felt that way about, that I've been really able to sit down and have conversations with, past just my academics, more about what I'm excited about, what I'm happy about, things like that, that I didn't realize how important they would be, but have been really important. And even in one of my courses that we had a lot more students in, it was just one of the introductory science courses, which the majority of courses at Colgate, the average class size is about 19, but some of the courses tend to be a little bit bigger. So this one was Astronomy 101, and so we had about, I think, 60 students in it. And I remember going to his office hours, and he would make an effort with every single one of his students. Like, we were not just another one of these 65. He knew all of our names by, I think, after the first week, and he had us all come in and tell him what we were interested in, what sort of activities we were involved in, because he really wanted to get to know us beyond just a number.
Yeah, kind of. You said something like, "Oh, the average class size at Colgate is 19." I realized, like the back of my head, that like both the examples I used, my psych class and my oceanography class. My oceanography, I was like a weird Colgate freshman. For my first semester, I had 2 big lecture hall classes. So oceanography is an 80-person class. Professor LeVenture knew all of our names, like first name by like the second week, and like that was a discussion. Like, I had the 40-minute discussion with a professor who, like, I'm in this 80-person class with him. Like, in another university, I'd just be like a number. Or like the psych class is actually our biggest class at Colgate, I believe. It's like 240-ish people in like a big lecture hall. And like, I still, like, the professor knew me on a first name basis, just because like we would chat after class and stuff like that. So like, if you like do kind of go out of your way to like make those connections, they are like there and available for you. And even if you don't go out of your way, you probably end up finding yourself in them.
Great. One of the things that I had mentioned earlier, the point of this webinar is to really talk about a typical day at Colgate. But as we acknowledged, this spring was not typical, and we've definitely navigated some challenging times as a campus and as a community. And I hope one of the things that anyone who's attending can really take away from this is that sort of the friendships that are forged, the connections with faculty, those are important, certainly to your Colgate experience, your education, and important to students and important to our school when we have to navigate those challenges. So, Lauren and Tante, I wanted to ask you to speak a little bit about sort of how you still felt a sense of community when we had to pivot this spring, just with everything going on. What would you say about that in terms of how you maintained that community, how Colgate did that?
For me, a couple things come to mind, and one is just with friends. I have so many friends that we did big Zoom calls with to stay in touch, because we're all located all over the place. So it's been really nice just to connect with people through Zoom, as well as some of my some of my clubs have done the same thing. So I mentioned I was on the club Ultimate Frisbee team. So we've actually been getting together and doing like little workouts virtually and just little meetups and things like that. So in terms of friendships and things like that, I think it's very kind of easy to maintain that just with, socially, through social media, through Zoom, things like that. And then in terms of the more like the Colgate faculty, Colgate community in that sense, I felt that when we did go online this past semester, the faculty at Colgate were extremely accessible. So all of my professors made a huge effort to really be there for their students, and they wanted us to know that they were there to support us and help us in any ways. So they were extremely accommodating. They understood that some students, at home, the academic the atmosphere might be a little bit different than being at school. So they were super accommodating. All of my professors were available for office hours virtually. So I never felt like I didn't have that academic support that I needed.
Yeah, definitely. We also did have like little group workouts and like group reunion stuff, but through like various clubs, just like my friends and stuff. Still being in touch with like our advisors is a big thing, because like whenever you do course registration, you have to talk to your advisor about like, oh, here's what I'm thinking. I'm kind of there to guide you through that. And I saw this sort of question in the chat, so I'm just gonna like address it. Freshmen are like assigned an advisor by their first year seminar. So that's kind of a class that you take that kind of matches you into your residence hall and also like the people that you live with. And your professor for that will be your advisor for your first years until you declare your major at the end of, usually around the end of sophomore year. So that's kind of how that happens. But yeah, I was in touch with my advisor for registration. We had like a nice like 20-minute chat, just like asking how things are going, talking about like how returning to campus might work, stuff like that. Just before we actually got into the actual meetup, like talking about classes and stuff. And she's super sweet. She like would bring in like apple cider donuts and like coffee on like that in our first year seminar. So she was amazing. And then also actually my Japan professor from last semester at the end of like probably like 2 weeks, say out from final exams. So we were kind of removed. He sent out emails. Everyone was like, "Hey, I loved all you guys' research papers. I really want to talk to you guys. Please like feel free." Like he's invited us to all sit in on his intro to Japanese class. And he was like, even if you don't want to sit in, like just come and like talk to me. I want to talk about you guys' papers with you guys. Like you can sit down and have a coffee somewhere if you guys are interested. So professors are super down to like keep and stay connected in these kind of like weird times.
Great, thank you both. As Tante noted, we are getting a lot of really great questions, so we want to get to some of those. If we don't get to all of your questions, certainly stay in touch with us, reach out to us. So one of the questions I noticed that I do want to address is about Greek life. That's a question that we often get. And I was hoping that we could start with that one. So Tante and Lauren, in terms of Greek life at Colgate, how does that work? And how is it a presence on campus from your perspective? What would you say?
So for us at Colgate, about 30% of students are involved in Greek life, and we have 5 fraternities and 3 sororities. And how it works, as I mentioned, I'm involved in a sorority, and it's been a really positive experience for me. How it works at Colgate is if you're interested in joining, you wouldn't do so until the fall of your sophomore year. So it's called delayed recruitment, which is a really nice thing because Colgate really wants you to get involved in other activities as well as to get to know yourself as a college student before deciding whether or not Greek life is something for you. Another thing I want to mention about Greek life is personally, as I mentioned, I joined a sorority, but I've also been able to maintain friendships with people who are not affiliated with any Greek organization, as well as with members of other organizations on campus. So I don't think of it as a restrictive at all. It's really just something, you know, if you want to add it into your life, like that's great, but if not, it's not going to change your experience in any way.
Yeah, I think Lauren covered it pretty well there. I'm not involved in class, so I don't really have as much to say about it. I definitely do feel like I do have friends who are like kind of involved in Greek life, and it's not they like disappear, like they've been kidnapped by some cult, and like they're still around and we still talk. So like it's not like it is like the only part of their lives which they do join. And I know that for a lot of them, it does become a big part of their time here. You know, it's a very like good support system and community for them. So like that's that, but I'm not personally interested.
Another question that came in, what were you most surprised about when you got to Colgate, both positive and negative? So what are some things that surprised you that maybe you didn't know about? I'm sure both of you researched Colgate well, maybe participated in events like this as you were learning more. So what were some things that surprised you?
Yeah, we always talk about like small class sizes and intimate, like and like well, helping the communities. But, like it really is something like once you come on campus, you notice like everyone here is really like welcoming and wants you to come and is like passionate about the school. And for me, like when I first toured here, the professor of the class that I sat in on, like after the class was over, came up and talked to me and the other prospective student, and like was just kind of like asking us like, oh, like how's your search going? Like hadn't like introduce himself. Was having like a really like nice candid discussion with us. And it's like he didn't have to do that. Like he had other places to be, but he wanted to come and kind of like try and like talk to us about the school and talk to us about how we were doing just like personally. And that was like a really big thing of like, wow, like the professors here really do kind of like want to get to know you and really do care. So that was kind of the big surprise for me. One thing that was like kind of a negative, I guess, is like coming to campus and realizing like that there is a lot of wealth and like privilege on this campus. Like I'd say that like a majority of the campus is like upper class and kind of grappling with issues of kind of like dealing with some ignorance and stuff. That's kind of been like part of my experience, but I will say like I've always felt supported. We have a great we have a lot of great support for minorities and also for people of lower income. A club just funded last year it's called We Are Enough. It's a club for making sure that people of like lower socioeconomic standing feel like they have a voice. So there is a lot of support for kind of helping people deal with that kind of culture shock that might occur when you're right on campus.
For me, something that surprised me, I guess, or something that I guess I just wasn't expecting is I was a little bit nervous about going to a school that was very rural like Colgate. I was nervous that I was going to be either bored or not feel like there was enough. But something that surprised me is that there's so much going on just with like within the Colgate community. There are so many events, both social, athletic events, kind of entertainment based events that I thought I was going to be bored, but really I just don't even have enough time to do everything that I would like to do, just because there is so much going on. So that's something that definitely pleasantly surprised me. Something that maybe was a little bit tough for me at first was the weather. It gets very, very cold at times. I remember some of my friends back home were like, oh, it's, 10 degrees here. I'm like, it's below 0 here. Like, what are you talking about? So that was definitely an adjustment for me, but you do adjust, and it ends up being perfectly okay.
Yeah, I can second the weather. I am from Florida, so I was not ready. I've like seen snow and like been around family who like have like lived in snow, but I've never done it personally. So that was like crazy. Even just like nature wise, like living in a place where like trees change color in the fall was like mind blowing, and like seeing like hills and stuff because like Florida's flat and it's like a swamp. So I was like, what is happening? But like it's Colgate is like a really beautiful campus, and even if it is like super cold, like sometimes like in the winter it can be like really stunning, like with the snow like on the ground and stuff.
Um, each of you talked about a typical day that might be during the week, Monday through Friday. You have class. We did have a few questions that came in about the weekend. What are weekends like on Colgate? And also, do students go on campus or go off campus? Do they stay at Colgate? So, what are weekends like at Colgate?
Um, so for me, I usually weekends involve hanging out with like different like clubs, like the graphics club, like I said mentioned, like we're like a family, so like we hang out on the weekends and like do stuff. One thing that I know I did like 2 or 3 times in the first semester was we do bus trips to Syracuse on the weekends. So you can go to the mall in Syracuse, kind of hang out there, go shopping, looking for things like you couldn't really find maybe in Hamilton. So that's always like giving that kind of more urban experience is an option on the weekend. So like 45-minute drive, and you get a bus. Like it was free. You like press a spot on the bus, you get on the bus. You can schedule like when you want to be picked up, so you can like leave in the morning and come back like 9 at night, or you can like leave a bit earlier, like the midday. So that's an option. Also for me on the weekends, I'm on work study, so I was working with our Golden Auditorium, which is kind of like a theater for presenting things for like film classes, or if there's a presenter coming onto campus. So Sundays was usually like a day for training for me, where I'd kind of like go in and work with. We had like old like 40-year-old projectors that use like film reels, so learning how to use those, and also work was a way for me to get my homework done, because a lot of times like if we are in there and we're running something, like you just kind of have to press play and wait for people to leave and then close up shop. So during that whole time when the movie's running, I can like sit there and do homework. So that was like a huge boon for me to be able to make money and do homework at the same time, because that helped, because I was bad at time management, especially in the first semester.
For me, weekends entail it's kind of a mixture of both like spending time with friends and getting a little bit of work done. So some of like my like favorites things to do too is also going to sports games. I'm a big sports fan, so I would love Friday nights. There would often be hockey games. So my favorite thing would be to go to a hockey game and then get takeout from. We have this place called Donovan's Pub, which is kind of like it's almost like a sports bar type kind of place, and you can get things like nachos and wings or burgers, things like that. So, and it's kind of right directly on the way from the hockey arena up the hill. So it was perfect because we would go to the hockey game, get our food from there, and then go up the hill. So I love that. Also football games, things like that. Really just whatever was going on. I really enjoyed those. Sunday is more of a day to kind of decompress as well as get some work done and really just prepare myself for the upcoming week. Really just try and figure out what my schedule was, what I needed to get done. But yeah, mostly Friday and Saturday is I really try to spend time with friends and do that.
We had several questions come in about residential life at Colgate. And so again, one of the reasons that I think students are drawn to come to Colgate is because they get a sense of campus and community. They get to live in a residence hall, they live in a commons, and that's the kind of college experience that they want. And I think there's a real strong sense of community because of that aspect of the experience and because of where we're located too, given that we are located in Hamilton, New York. Lauren had pointed out too, we're in this sort of rural landscape, right? So I wanted to ask each of you to talk a little bit about sort of the different residential options and different residential communities that you've been a part of and how all of that works.
So I guess I'll comment a bit on like the first year, second year experience. Then Lauren maybe talk about the stuff like in junior, senior as you move down the hill. We usually say that you start up the hill and move down the year down the hill as you kind of move on through your class years. So you'll basically, that residential process starts with you filling out an application, basically saying, here's kind of my preference in terms of like where I like would want to like what kind of style housing I want. So there's suite versus like regular double or triple style. Suite is you have like 3 or 4 singles or doubles that are connected that have a common bathroom that you guys would usually maintain. In Bryan Complex, the bathrooms are actually cleaned by custodians, but it depends on like which place you're in. And then the doubles would be like you have a double and you have a communal bathroom on the floor. And then the application also kind of covers how noisy you are when you go to sleep, like when you like to study, stuff like that, to kind of try and match it with a roommate who you won't have issues with. I had a pretty good experience my first year, not really having any like conflicts with my roommate at all, so that was really good. And then so you're placed into a dorm randomly basically your first year. You are placed into a residential commons depending on where you live. So I was in Hancock Commons last year, and the commons are kind of a way to provide programming for residents through their CLs to kind of foster community and stuff. So we had like a masquerade ball one night. We had my favorite community event was weekend brunches. They put like cartoons up on the big projector in the main main area in Bryan Complex, and the professor would actually come in and cook food for students in the morning, which was great because I didn't have to walk up the hill to get to Frank. And I just got to like walk out of my dorm like in my pajamas and go downstairs and grab food, which was amazing. I'm trying to think of anything else. I think I about covered the kind of freshman residential experience. So Lauren, can maybe talk a bit more about what happens as you move down the hill?
Absolutely. So your junior and senior year, there are a number of different options. Those include, Colgate owns a number of apartments down the hill. So that have 4-person, 3-person, 6-person. So you can really kind of figure that out. And that gives you have a kitchen within those, as well as just more kind of a little bit more space, which is really nice. There's also options called townhouses, which are larger groups. So that's 8, 14, or 16. As well as if you are in a Greek organization, you can live in your fraternity or sorority house. And there's also a number of what we call like specialty houses along the main kind of street. And that those include, so like if you wanted to stay kind of in your commons, you can go to you could go and live in your commons house. There's also, I know, a peace and conflict studies house that a lot of peace and conflict studies majors decide to live in. And I know there are just a number of different kind of specialty houses like that. As well as senior year, a small percentage of students decide to live off campus, and those are usually in apartments or houses just a little bit further into town. I actually just got through the process of choosing housing for this year. It was a little bit tricky because I was supposed to be going abroad in the fall, but due to COVID, I'm now hopefully going to be going in the spring just because, things got a little bit shifted, but I'm in a single now in a townhouse, and I'm really excited about it.
Great, thank you both. Before we wrap up, I do want to pose one more question to each of you, and that is, why did you choose Colgate? You were looking at a lot of schools. What was it about Colgate that stood out to you, and why ultimately did you decide to become a part of the Colgate community?
For me, a big part of it was that Colgate is a very affordable school if you are a student who needs financial aid. We meet 100% of demonstrated financial need. And as of this year, actually, we have a no loan initiative. So if your family is below, I believe, $125,000 in income, you will have no loans included in your package. So anything that would have previously been a loan, like so for last year, if loans were in my financial aid package, this year they're part of my grant. So that's been like a huge kind of part of making my college experience very affordable. And there's a lot of other ways through like career service and stuff where you can kind of get money from Colgate if you do need to do like research and stuff like that. there's a lot of kind of ways to make the most out of your experience, like or study abroad, for example, financially travels abroad. There's all kinds of ways to kind of make the most out of your experience, not to worry as much about financials. That's been a huge part for me. And also, I kind of mentioned earlier with like the experience of the professor, kind of getting to come on campus and see how welcoming and inviting the community is, and how you get to have that one-on-one kind of time with professors. And the thing that really shocked me was like sitting on that class and realizing that like professor wasn't really lecturing at his students. He asked them like how their day was before. He only knew them all by first name. It was like an 8-person class. It was like super like intimate. It was a senior class, and they were all kind of discussing ideas. It didn't feel like a lecture. They were all kind of like giving their own opinions, like kind of sharing ideas from various things they've done over their past 3 years. They all kind of have different perspectives of coming in, kind of talking about it intellectually, and it was like really cool to see more of like a discussion less of like, I'm going to teach you things. So that was really kind of what made me want to come to Colgate.
So I would definitely echo Tante in like the very welcoming feeling of Colgate. For me, it was what initially kind of drew me to Colgate was that I knew we had like really strong academics, and that was something that was really important. But what sold me on Colgate was I was able to come and stay with a couple students, and they were so charismatic and passionate about Colgate. They were so passionate. They were so excited. They really were encouraging of me to come to Colgate. And that made me really excited because I knew that I wanted a charismatic, passionate student body that really, really loved, being at their school. So for me, that really resonated, and it's really held true too. I really feel like Colgate does have a very charismatic and enthusiastic student body.
Terrific. Thank you both so much. I do want to wrap things up just by saying we hope that everyone will continue to stay connected with us. We do offer virtual information sessions each week. Students who will be high school seniors in the fall, you're welcome to register for a virtual interview. And that's a great way to have a conversation with a student, kind of like what we just did this evening as well. Virtual interviews, they're non-evaluative, they're informational, and they're a great way though for Colgate to get to know you and for you to get to know our students a little bit more and ask some of those questions. Again, we didn't get to everyone's question, and we invite you to reach out to us and stay connected. I think that's really important too, just given some of the things that we talked about tonight. What I would say too, in terms of my work and my colleagues' work as admission officers, we understand that this has been an unusual spring and summer, and going into the fall, we want to provide reassurance as much as we can about some of the things that we're doing to be accommodating, certainly. And so one of the things that we do want students and families to know about the application process for the upcoming year is we will be test optional for the upcoming year. Part of our work as admission officers too is to get to know you and to get to know your schools. So again, we understand that this past spring and going into the fall, it might not continue to be typical. And part of our work is to get to know you, to get to know schools. And we want to make sure that you reach out to us if you have any questions as you're navigating the application process and as you're learning more about Colgate. So again, I want to say thank you once again for joining us. Tante and Lauren, thank you so much. And I hope everyone has a good evening.